Welcome back to the Garden with Joe and Holly radio show. Thank you so much for being with us. It's time for your garden questions and our garden answers. If you've got a question, send it on over to gardentalkradio@gmail.com. That's gardentalkradio@gmail.com. Or you can give us a call, toll free, coast to coast at 1-800-927-SHOW. That's 1-800-927-7469. Again, gardentalkradio@gmail.com or toll free at 1-800-927-SHOW. Had questions? We'll see what we can get through to the top of the hour, Holly.
I planted my Brussels sprouts earlier this summer. Should I have waited? They seem to be growing slowly. This is my second time planting Brussels sprouts. I'm not sure. The last time, I think I harvested them too early. They're a long-growing, long-season plant that's going to take about 120 days to reach maturity. So patience is important here. Otherwise, you are not going to get Brussels sprouts. So what you need to do is to wait until the sprouts are as large as possible, preferably before the first hard freeze. Now, to get those sprouts as large as you possibly can, you want to top the plant off, meaning about 45 days before you would think you're going to harvest, or better rule of judgment is when you see the sprouts beginning to develop in the joints of the plant, like where the leaves and the stalk connect, you want to cut the top 6 inches of your plant off. Don't be scared. It's going to stop the vertical growth and put on more energy into the sprouts themselves. Some people will cut the leaves off and lower. Don't do that. Just cut the top 6 inches of the plant off when you see those sprouts begin to form, and you will be amazed how big and large your Brussels sprouts are. And do not worry about, if you've had store-bought Brussels sprouts, yeah, they're horrible. But if you have not had homegrown Brussels sprouts, they are a delight that you have never experienced before. They are delicious. And a lot of times when you have store-bought, or maybe when you were a kid, you had them cooked for you and they were mushy and possibly like overcooked or overboiled. There are so many delicious Brussels sprout recipes, roasted Brussels sprouts. You can even do them in the air fryer. They get really tasty and kind of crispy on the outside. So there's a lot of, don't be discouraged about the future and you and your Brussels sprouts.
All right. Next question is, what do we got? Is there a best time to get a soil test, and how often should I get one?
I wouldn't say there's like a best time. I don't think there's a best time.
I would say every 3 to 5 years, or when you start seeing significant plant problems by discoloration.
They meant time of year.
Time of year. Oh, time of year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think maybe midsummer would be okay.
Well, here you can do a soil test at any time. However, everybody and 7 people get it done right before spring. So your best time in which, and they process, if we're speaking about soilsavvy.com, gives you 16 points of analyzation and tells you what you need and don't need and how recommendations to get your soil where you want it to. The best time is to do it in the fall, because nobody's thinking about soil tests in the fall. Everybody's shutting down. We're done for the year. And everybody comes, March, April, got to get a soil test, and they're flooded and things are backed up. So get it in the fall, and you follow the recommendations. Just don't, if it says so many samples and so many things, don't give them more, don't give them less. Do exactly what the test says, the instructions, so you get the proper information and you know exactly what you need to do in order to not waste time or money getting your soil healthy for the plants you're wanting to grow.
Absolutely. So
I do have, let's see, is it worth investing in the expensive garden tools versus the cheap ones? I'm
going to say your mileage may vary. Okay, so like, for example, if you buy a trowel and you look at that trowel and it costs you $3, and you can see that if you're like a mad garden digger and you're going to break that trowel because it has like a thin little handle, then you might want to invest in something that has like the steel all the way throughout.
Cheap. cheap welds and multiple pieces welded together versus
like a one piece,
one forged piece of cast aluminum or stainless steel or metal, iron, whatever you want to talk about.
So I think you have to think about how often you're going to use it, maybe how aggressive you are on things. Like, for example, if you have a shovel and you're like, I'm just going to move, some material around occasionally, I'm not going to be very hard on it. Something that's cheaper might last you for a long time. But if it's something that you're going to use frequently, I feel like it's worth the investment to get the more expensive one because it's likely going to last you longer.
Well, here's the other thing in that. Yeah, you can go to the garden center and spend 8, 12, 15, fill in the blank for a shovel, a trowel, a hoe, a rake, whatever. Yard sales. And the old tools, if they are still around, they probably were made pretty good. The shovels with the support around the base where the metal brackets to hold everything together even stronger than the new stuff. Old shovels, you can get them for very, very cheap. Even on junk day, you can see things thrown alongside the road. So cheap or free, if it lasts a couple of years, is better than buying something at the store. You're recycling, reusing, reducing that little triangle thing. However, if you're going to go the route of I'm going to buy, you also want to examine yourself. Are you lazy? Are you forgetful? Do you leave things out in the yard that shouldn't be left in the yard? Meaning, if you're going to forget your tools, you might not want to invest in a wooden-handled shovel. You might want to go with fiberglass because wood will absorb water and rot eventually. And here you're trying to dig and snap goes the shovel and you got to go buy a new one because you left it out for 3 years and you forgot about it.
Exactly. No, and that's very true. If you take care, I think, again, it's your mileage may vary. So if you take care of your tools.
Some people love their tools more than they love their children.
Yes. So if you take care of what you have, it might last you longer versus, again, if you leave it out in the yard or all of a sudden your children are playing sword fight with it, who knows?
You playing sword fight with it with the neighbors.
With the neighbors.
Yeah, get away from here. Get them. No violence. Don't hit your neighbors.
Yeah, no, probably not. Don't go down that road.
Okay, I do have one question. Much of my thistle problem is near a small boxwood bush and other ornamentals. If I use horticultural grade vinegar from natgreenproducts.com, will it also kill my other plants that I still want? Also, is it harmful to my digging dog? Well, horticultural grade vinegar is vinegar that is based on the manufacturer between 20 and 45% vinegar. It's not your store-bought vinegar that's 3 to 5%. We spoke about this a couple of times, and people still swear online that, I use it, and it's the greatest thing in the world. It's not. I don't know what they're using, and the weeds are just laughing. So, you want to add, when you use...
I just wouldn't, unless there's pictures... or video.
Yeah,
I wouldn't trust some clown who's like, I use it all the time.
It's like these memes with no documentation, no sources. They just make... Anyway, the horticultural grade vinegar, it is a non-selective spray, which means it will burn anything that you spray it on. Higher the percentile of vinegar percentage, the more damage, the quicker it will do. It's not a glyphosate. It's not going to go in the leaves to the roots and the plant's dead. You may have to apply a couple of times in order to what they call burn the plant or kill the plant that way. It's only going to kill what you spray on it. And it's a vinegar, so it's not going to toxify. I mean, we're not putting gallons of vinegar in and around the grasses, around the tree, where the dog is going to dig up and get poisoned because of it. You're going to be totally fine. Follow the recommended rates on the bottle. That's why they're there. And you're not going to, once it dries, it's not going to affect your animal, your pet at all. So with that being said, we are out of time and we thank you for yours. We've come to the portion of the program where we talk about what we've learned today.
So I know I've learned this a number of times, but I just always like when we talk about killer compost because I think it reminds people, A, to know where their compost is coming from, and B, unfortunately we're at the point in life where you can't just be like, oh, this came from my neighbor and I can just dump it all over my garden.
I don't know if we was ever at that point. We were many generations were naive, but also the toxicity has increased from generation to generation.
But I'm saying that it's like a good and bad, pro and con.
I learned our guest Lee Miller, she was a gardener, and then it was her friends that really pushed her into the role of what she does now in landscaping. So sometimes we need to listen to our friends. Sometimes we need to listen to our friends cautiously, and sometimes we need to tell our friends to go shove it and make a wise decision on your own. Life lessons.
Life lessons.
What we've learned today is brought to you by Honeybee Healthy.
Whether you're a gardener, a bee hobbyist, or a professional beekeeper, Honeybee Healthy Inc. has the products to help you maintain a healthy and thriving hive garden. For more information on how to use Honeybee Healthy in your garden, visit honeybeehealthy.com.